Look, this is, if I'm not mistaken, this is episode 6 of the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast presenting the Fantasy Walkabout. I am your host with the most time on his hands. I am Thomas Tipple. You can find me at Thomas Tipple FF over there on the Bird app, and I definitely shit myself once in the middle of a pro wrestling match.
And I'm Tom Lee. You can find me at Tom_Lee, spelled LIE 92 on Twitter. And I can bench 225 for about 27 reps.
You can go fuck yourself. That's incredible. 225 27 times would put you right up there with professional offensive linemen.
Did not shit myself at the time, though, which is crucial.
Look, believe it or not, that happening to you when wrestling happens way more often than people think. Okay?
Yeah, wrestling and childbirth, right?
Exactly. Way more common than people think. I was very ill. Look, get into that story another time, but just good visual for everyone. Look, today we're going to do what we always do, right? We're going to talk about some value, but we're going to do it a little bit differently than you would normally have us do. Last week, I said at the beginning, I was foolish enough to think that we didn't have a proper hour of things to talk about. Turns out all I have to do is have Baker Mayfield brought up, and I can have plenty of time to fill an hour. But today, we don't have to stretch the time. You see, last week, I promised that we would talk about a current draft that was happening at the time that involved every member of the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast crew. And that draft's pretty much in the bag. I think we're in round 20. We're going to actually talk about that this time, I promise.
Yeah.
And I know we don't talk about startups and ADPs and all that jazz. We're going to a little bit today. We're going to break our own rule because it's the off season. We got a lot of shows to do. Obviously, throughout the show, we're going to have some highlights from previous episodes. And look, we had a lot. I know I did 6 shows in 5 days last week. And we again have, I guess if you go Saturday to Saturday, we're going to have 4 shows this week again. And it's just not stopping. We have so many guests that we will definitely be talking about on this show. And I'm humbled and I'm happy and I'm proud of the group and everything we've been able to do to this point. And we're going to keep growing, and we're going to announce some of those guests a little later. Obviously, our last one was Troy King. I highly recommend going and watching that episode. We talked Dolphins football. Tuesday, Billy and I, Big Billy FF, it's going to be the two of us. We're going to be doing our first mock draft of the offseason, so him and I can make fun of each other continuously. And Thursday, March 3rd, we do have Steven Johnson joining us from ChiCitySports.com to talk Chicago Bears football. So, again, more stuff this week, and March is just jam-packed leading up to the rookie stuff, which I think everybody wants to talk about at this point. Keep Trade Cut has uploaded rookies into their rankings for everyone to, fool around with and just keep punching content through. Those guys are a content fountain, and we appreciate them. If not for anything else, but for that. Look, I've been talking a little bit too long already. We're going to take a quick second. I'm going to run a highlight from the other shows from this week. We come back. We are going to talk about I don't think we really have any news to talk about. We have a shits me to tears this week. We haven't had one in a while, so
it's about time I'm
going to tell you what shits me to tears right now, and that'll be when we come back. Check this out.
Troy, what's your favorite Miami Dolphins memory in your time watching the team?
Easy. It's really when I fell in love with it. So I was born into a Miami Dolphins home. So even when I was younger, I always knew the Miami Dolphins were dope. But I mean, in terms of I always liked them, right? But it definitely was the 2008 season. Wildcat, Ronnie Brown,
last time they were
Ricky
fun,
Williams.
honestly.
That was the last time we were fun with Chad Pennington. Oh my gosh. It was literally, I just remember that. It was so happy. We made the playoffs. We lost, but we looked so good. But it was the year that Tom Brady got hurt. Yep. So that's the one thing. But we won the division, and it felt so good. It was so awesome. But no, it was just, again, no one could stop the Wildcat. Everyone knew it was coming. And
Ronnie Brown, baby.
Ronnie Brown was not passing the ball. You knew he was gonna. It was either him running or Ricky, but they did. It was NFL was whoa, what is happening? And it was as cool as a fan to watch my team be good I was like 18 years old when that happened. I was like, yo, this is super dope.
One of my favorite parts of that whole show with Troy was getting to get a real insight on why he was a fan, how he became a fan, and how he views fantasy football as a fan. So you can go and check that show out, obviously, on both YouTube channels, the multiple audio platforms for podcasting. We're all over the place. Tom Lee, can you explain what Shits Me to Tears is for new listeners?
I suppose Shits Me to Tears is probably the closest comparison would be like grinds my gears, right? What gets to you, what manages to sneak under your skin and just absolutely, as we would say, shits you to tears. And in the fantasy world, there is plenty of it. But for you this week, there was a little one that got the trigger sort of shivers going. What did you experience this week, Tom?
Look, in season, this is way easier to do. I even had this happened so much. I even created a show which will actually be returning in March with John Arrington, the Monocle Dynasty podcast, which we called the Midweek Tilt. It was just happening so frequently, and this one doesn't. This one barely fits in the category of shits me to tears because it doesn't bother me necessarily, but it kind of bothered me for just general linear comps. And this isn't the person I was talking to. It's not a slight on them. It's just something that happens, and
these conversations happen all
it was
the time,
a great
right?
It was a great conversation to have. It's not even negative on them, but it was a good conversation to have. But if you're buying Michael Thomas at his current value, it is not the same thing as buying Christian McCaffrey in the hopes of him regaining value for you. It's not the same thing. You want to get in on Michael Thomas's current value. I've seen him personally go anywhere between round 7 and 9. This is for a potential 25, 26+% target share receiver with an abandoned receiver room who's been good with the Taysom Hill, at least at quarterback. Still getting fed the ball. The coaching staff is gone, but Michael Thomas has still been a good player, even when pretty injured. He's worth taking in the 7th to 9th round. Christian McCaffrey, you still have to take in the early to mid-second most of the time. He's still going in the first and others. He's never going to
running back off the board. Yeah,
he's never going to give you the same value he used to. You're not trading for him at his current value in the hopes that he's going to regain some value and maybe you can move him away. That's not a true value player. You can't look at doing those two things the same way. They're completely different. And the reason this came up is like when I mentioned this, it was, oh, well, that's the same thing with Michael Thomas, the same thing that I'm doing. It's not. You can actually draft Michael Thomas in the 7th to 9th round. He can go on and have a good season, and you're either going to have a productive player for a perceived duration of his contract, or you can move him. Christian McCaffrey will never be able to actually actively give you value back from where you're drafting him and or trading him. Maybe he pops off and has like another top 5 running back season. Okay, he's going to be 26 years old. Everyone who's tried to trade a running back who's 26 years old knows that you're losing value from when you got that player.
Yeah, you're not buying him to trade him on for value in future. You are hoping that he produces for the next 2 to 3 years at his peak, and that's it.
You're pretty much drafting him to let him die in your roster and hope you win a championship or two. That's all you're trying to do.
It could be amazing, but it's like buying flowers. You kind of know what's going to happen. It's very pretty. It improves the room a lot. But you know what's happening here.
And we're talking about the difference between taking a running back in the 2nd round and 1st round, or trading at his current value, multiple 1st-round picks, or a younger running back and a 1st-round pick, or more, compared to drafting a receiver who's 30 years old, under contract, who has a history of being outstanding, and being able to trade that player. You're not trading your 1st round pick for a 7th round in a startup. That's not going to happen. But drafting Michael Thomas in the 7th, 8th, 9th round will net you at least a 1st round pick from at least a contender. Later, in the season. You can get more than what his value is currently and get closer to what his true value is, which is rightfully a 4th and 5th round draft startup pick if he didn't get hurt last year. And this is most likely. We also got Voorhees over here coming all the way from Twitch, actually. Currently up 2-0 against Voorhees in a best of 5 MLB The Show series, which him and I will be finishing later this weekend. You'll be able to catch that on Twitch. I suggest going and checking him out. The vibes are stellar. He's wonderful. So for me, Tom Lee, that is why when you're drafting a player who seems to have slipped in ADP, and who really doesn't deserve to be there, but obviously circumstances has hit, this really shits me to tears. Comparing it to a fall of, say, a run, even if it's not even a running back, if it's a quarterback that's fallen like around, right? It's not the same thing, and these can be very dangerous for people thinking that they're buying into Christian McCaffrey sliding to be able to trade him for that peak value.
Correct.
It's just it's impossible, really, unless of course. There are sometimes, and this is going to come off as insulting, there are fish in your leagues. There are managers who are more willing to go all in on the aging running backs, not even going to claim that it's not the same thing as being a fish. That's just a belief. So sometimes you can get lucky. But this time of the year especially is the worst time to be buying running backs. So it's kind of the worst time to be drafting those running backs in the hopes of flipping them. Am I crazy or...
Well, no, and that's what we're seeing. We're seeing more and more running backs slide down in drafts, especially this time of the year. And I guess that's causing people to go, oh, maybe this person slid in value. We love to talk about post-draft a lot as well. And there is an opportunity to buy Christian McCaffrey for cheaper than what he was a year ago. But that's for a reason, right? Like we know where the graph's headed. Now, it's a great-looking graph. It's a great-looking, like I said, they're a nice set of flowers.
I like that. I like that one.
But you're not going to be able to return a value on it. Whereas the investment is, you found this bunch of fake flowers in Michael Thomas that's far cheaper. It's going to last a little bit longer. And the upside, and we hate the word upside, but the upside for yourself and your team is far higher at that investment price than hoping. You're sort of committing to the plan, especially if we flip back 2 drafts. You are committing to the plan of we need to win now with Christian McCaffrey because you cannot sell him. Yeah.
Can you imagine, speaking of flowers, you go and buy your lady some flowers, right? And they started to wilt away, kind of like a running back's legs start to wilt away on them when they hit, 25, 26, 27 years old, especially with those crazy workloads. Imagine taking a flower back after they started to wilt away and going, I want to return these. Why you want to return them? Well, they're kind of not good anymore.
Yeah, they're not doing the same thing. Well,
can I just get the same thing back for them? That's kind of what you're doing. Where at least you can, I don't know, garage sale fake flowers and maybe make back a small percent like you would with Michael Thomas.
Plastic plants are a thing now.
Exactly. Right? And you have people like you who are, value hunters, garbage pickers for players. And I mean,
very rarely do I go pick up some. I might steal a flower from someone's garden. But
you're definitely someone who I call the value king. So look, that's what shits me to tears this week. When we come back, we got Punish Atali. It just so happens that I'm doing that right now, right here. We got a nice tall boy for me because it's 3:30 in the afternoon for me on a Saturday, where it's like 7:30 in the morning for you over in Australia. So
won't be cracking at all. No.
Yeah, not yet. Maybe after you bench 225 27 times because
we'll see how the rest of the pod goes. We might need one at the end.
Yeah, we might. At least the listeners might. Okay, look, we got another clip from the last show. And when we, or I guess previous shows, when we come back, we're going to punish Atali. All right, here you go. I just want to add, though, it takes a few years to rebuild an offensive line. It's not just sign a free agent, draft 2 guys, and they're good right away. It took San Francisco a while to establish this wide scheme after Harbaugh left. It took a while to get the right pieces in place. It's not going to be whoever they're drafted is an automatic RB1. And I think that's the fantasy advice people need to pay attention to. Because no matter who they draft and no matter who they place, they're just as likely to be Myles Gaskin year 1 as anyone else they put there. I think that advice is not said enough. And people can go, well, Najee Harris walked into the Pittsburgh Steelers situation, and he was fine. He was elite. No, he was James Conner with like 400 touches, or like 400
2 or 3 more
opportunities.
years of age.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like he was great, but his volume is what propelled Najee Harris. I'm not even saying Myles Gaskin wasn't a fine player. He was a fine player some weeks. He even was great some weeks. But just because they draft a running back, right? But just because the Dolphins might draft a running back in the second or third round or sign a free agent that everyone gets hot about, their ADP is going to shoot up because of it's the San Francisco system. Maybe Miami Dolphins have one of the worst offensive lines in football, and we talked about that with Troy King at T King Mode on Twitter. And I just don't think it's talked about enough how long it takes to get a cohesive, built offensive line that can run a system like that. Again, Jesse Davis was their highest paid lineman, and he was absolute dog shit.
Dog shit, yeah.
But Tom Lee, we're gonna punish a tallie here. Why don't you explain that for any new viewers? We like to use a lot of Aussie lingo here.
Yeah, like you said, what did you call it before? A tall boy, tall beer. I think I said last week.
We call them tall boys,
So what I've done is I've turned the camera around, and this is a tall boy over here, right? This is your sort of nice tall clothing storage device. But a tallie for us is a tall beer, right? A long beer, and to have a yarn or have a chat over a tall beer just means we're not going to take it too seriously when it comes to fantasy advice. But this week we thought we'd roll through and have a look at some of our takeaways from the startup draft that we're doing. It's been a while since we've dived into a startup process, so we're a little rusty, but it was some fun. I mean, so we'll start with you, Tom. What was one of your main takeaways from being in this?
That I have no idea what the fuck I was thinking. Look, this is the first time all members of the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast have been involved in a draft. And if I'm not mistaken, well, I guess not all members, because Lucas or the Cute Hurts on Twitch now does our video cuts. I know, we keep growing. And he's not in this draft. But for the main member, I can't even say main, can't even say original, but non-newest members of the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast being in this draft. That's me, Tom Lee, that's Jacob, that's Billy, and that's Maddie.
Yep.
It's only the second league where we're all in together. A lot of us have dispersed into other leagues and whatnot, because I'm not invited to all of them for some reason, because they're all bastards. But I had no plan going into this draft at all. This was the third draft I had done this off season.
How are you finding drafts this off season? What's your feel on them? Are you enjoying them? Do you think other people should be doing it?
I'm loving all of the drafts so far, but just don't draft a running back. The no RB drafting right now is so popular. You either have one or two choices. You draft all of them and just hope you win, or just embrace the fact that you don't need to draft one until like the 6th round, 5th round, because receivers and quarterbacks are just the hot ticket right now. This is a tight end premium draft. I didn't expect the first tight end to go 2-2, and I didn't expect to get the second tight end at 3-1. That seemed crazy to me. Kelsey didn't go until the 5th round, which I wasn't expecting. So my first glance back, I have the draft board up on my screen right now.
As do I.
We can actually, you know what I'll do for the people.
Let's get fancy.
Yeah, oh yeah. For the people, we're gonna bring it in. Oh yeah, I forgot we can't do that. Give me 1 second. We're gonna go like that. There we go.
There we go. It's one of the issues with having a tallie at 3:30 in the afternoon.
Exactly. Hey, I earned it. It's only my first one. Give me a break. Look, this is the draft that we're talking about. So I had the first pick in this draft. I immediately wanted to move back, so I did, and I did it at apparently a really stupidly cheap price. I moved back from 1 to 3, right? And all I gained was, I think I gained a 8th round pick or 9th. I gained a 9th round pick in exchange for an 11th round pick, and that's all that happened. And apparently that wasn't enough. I was totally fine and ready to take Justin Herbert or Lamar Jackson or Kyler Murray at 1.3. And remember how I said in one of the previous episodes that the human element is always present? Well, Najee Harris went pick 1.2.
Yeah.
And I completely I get it. It's easy to make fun of, and the chat kind of went a little crazy about it, and he explained himself, and it's fine. But I was not expecting Patrick Mahomes to be there. So when I say that I had no idea what I was planning with this draft, this is one of the drafts where I've just not really been able to trade at all.
Yeah.
One of the first times in my life that I've not been able to trade. But look, I'm happy with it. I'm scared because I have so many draft picks. The kickers are draft picks.
It's very un-new.
I have 5 right now in the first round. I don't think I've ever held that many in my life.
Yeah.
So it's odd. The Ezekiel Elliott at 7.1, even though I got roasted. And look, people, when you're in my DMs talking shit to me about drafting Ezekiel Elliott, I just want you to know one thing. I guess I want you to know 2 things. First off, I don't care what you think, for the most part. And second, I like to enjoy myself in my drafts. So that's why I did it. Because at 7.1, I decided that I was getting the 22nd running back off the board. He has an 18th running back off the board value, and that was fine with me. So get over yourselves.
Yeah, that's good value.
Yeah, get over yourselves. I mostly just don't give a shit. So, Tom Lee, when you went into this draft, did you have a strategy? Did you ride the board? This is a very weird draft for you, in my opinion.
It is a very weird draft for me.
So
and there's a couple of mistakes made along the way because...
Okay, let's talk about the mistakes, because I'm interested in the mistakes.
Yeah, so normally during startup season, which this isn't for me, I structure, because I run my own business, I structure my business allow me to wake up, pick sufficiently, and then get to work feeling very happy about myself. I did not do that this time around. I was at work for most of these and was not paying as much attention to the board as I probably should have been. But yeah, normally you'll see me trade back a fair bit, acquire picks especially. So you talked before, and I want to talk a little bit of process. I know it's punished at all, even don't get too serious with it. But if you're not bringing kickers in to indicate individual rookie picks, for me, I don't love that approach. This is my favorite way to draft rookie picks. I think they should be interspersed before the players get in.
IDP players or kickers, one of the two.
Yeah, one, it stretches the depth of the draft, which is what you want to see on a draft board, and makes it more fun and interesting, gives you more avenues and more opportunities to trade within a draft, which we also love. But it makes you think a bit more about where to actually value these people, or at least should, right? So normally, like we said, my normal strategy would be at least pick one high-level quarterback, pick a high-level running back, and then trade back as much as I can, hit 5th to 7th round value, accumulate 5 to 7 picks in that range, and have a starting roster that looks, one, competitive, and then pick off value as we go along, right? Classic. Just normal trade back value.
Right.
Weird.
This draft was hard to trade back in.
Was hard to trade back. So we sort of realized that in the first couple of rounds. Not everyone wanted to trade back. Turns out playing with more people we play with often, they don't love getting that sort of value given away.
Yeah, that was also very true. This draft, when we talk about knowing your draft, everyone in this draft knew each other except for pick 102, 104.
Yeah.
Everyone else, we all know each other really well.
All know each other's games. So for me, so I traded back a couple of times and I was pretty happy with that. And then for some reason, the first mistake came when I took Aaron Rodgers in the 4th.
I was so surprised at that when it happened.
As was I, after I clicked the button.
2 on the board.
Yeah. So
I think Zach Wilson was next.
Yeah, plenty of players I normally would have picked ahead of. But realistically, and we'll talk about with you taking the 2 first rookie picks, the 101 and the 102 were the pieces. And Jacob even said it in our Slack chat. They're the ones I would have normally gone with and I should have gone with. Not only just because Aaron Rodgers is old as hell and
might be retiring.
Right?
Get fucked.
But the way it was headed was because I traded back and because running backs are being faded, I normally would pick wide receivers in that 4th to 7th round. I managed to get Cook one by accident. Again, wasn't paying attention. But also Barkley. So I've got JT.
Because you wanted Dobbins on that pick, right?
So, what I was after was when I was trading back, I'm like, well, Watson and Fields are going to fall. I'll get my quarterbacks in the 4th, right? And they did fall, but then
you never trust Deshaun Watson when Jacob's around.
They both went a pick before me, and I was just like, oh, no. Okay, the strategy's got to change. Didn't really know who to pick. Dropped my phone, picked Dalvin Cook. Look, not the worst thing in the world, but it happens. And he's a fine player, right? Dobbins would have been fine as well. But yeah, to get JT, Dalvin Cook, Saquon Barkley to start your running back room. I'm like, well, hang on, probably need to compete pretty soon. Is there someone who I see
So
as
you
a top
flip
12?
you flip the script on what you are
Yeah.
intending. Okay,
Yeah,
I get that.
is there someone I see as a top 12 dynasty quarterback who could be the QB5 overall on the board? Yes, there is.
I
And then I clicked before I went and checked who else and what else was on the board. And that's how Rodgers ends up in your team.
Well, look, I definitely regret waiting until pick 12 to take my second quarterback in Mr. Jared Goff. But hey,
look at the rookie picks, right?
That's life. But that's it. I don't think I want to draft a quarterback with my rookie picks. I think that's another thing. And I know a lot of the people in this league listen to our show, so all of you can go fuck yourselves. You're not hosing me down for my rookie picks, all right? But I will be hollering at almost everyone for quarterbacks. But having the 101 and the 102 gives me the most fluidity in my roster, trading, drafting. If I want to go Burks and Spiller, if I want to go London and Burks,
even if
Wilson
you don't want to take
Burks,
them,
even if I don't want to take
those,
them.
And this is where value trading in our show comes into its own.
Yes,
we're looking at post startup. We're not just looking at what happens in there. Everything in there is very linear. It's only what you can do with it. You can make the most of it once you're out of the draft. So to pick up the 102 and the 101, 102 at 412 and 501 is pretty handy.
It took everything in my power to not draft Travis Kelce.
Yeah, and we're going to get to that later on. Yeah,
even though I had my tight end 2 already, it took everything in my being not to take my favorite non-quarterback in the league.
Right.
Very tough because sometimes it is about fun, but at the end of the day, I took value.
Well,
Let's wrap it up. What are your final thoughts on this draft? Are you happy with it overall? Are you piss miserable?
No, it's good. I mean, it's good to be back drafting. We'll post our lineups, as soon as the draft's finished, and everyone can sort of have a go at what they like and what they didn't like.
Mm-hmm.
But it's fun to be back in a startup. It's fun to see where everyone values people, who the new hotnesses are, who the old hotnesses are. Who does everyone think's washed up and could actually still be of value? And we'll talk through a little bit of this. It sort of influenced what we're going to do a little later on with our process talk. So it's just fun to be in a draft with all of you guys again, and making those classic mistakes that everyone makes. Don't draft and drink. Don't draft and drive. It turns out don't draft and work, as it turns out. So it's nice to be back.
Yeah, exactly. And my final thoughts is to have fun in your drafts. Again, we don't normally talk about draft startups, but we thought this would be a little fun, a little bit of breaking up the monotony because, again, we've had so many shows and so much content out over the last week and a half that, take it light. That's why we punish Atali, or at least I punish Atali. Well,
I'll have to go get one after looking at my Aaron Rodgers.
Look, we got another highlight here. When we come back, we're going to do a Yui, and then we're going to get into the hard Yakka. So sit tight and enjoy.
And then the funniest part to me, this actually triggered me. I had multiple people, including some smart people that I really respect, saying that this would be a great reason to buy Najee Harris because Jonathan Taylor was the RB1 overall this year with Wentz.
I saw that.
What up, Calvin? Multiple people. If you watch the Colts, imagine watching the Colts this year and then being like, man, I don't know if this JT guy's any good, but Wentz really contributes to the run game success. I can't imagine having that opinion. First of all, Carson Wentz can't throw a check down or a screen at all, to the point they barely even try. And then it's not like he's exactly threatening defenses through the air. Jonathan Taylor was good because he's Jonathan Taylor. Najee's going to be fine regardless because he gets volume. But
are you sure it wasn't?
Word.
Are you sure it wasn't just because of Wentz? That whole narrative was just absolutely disgusting. That clip was featuring Anthony Correnti. Oh my God, Anthony Correnti of Dynasty Drive. That was our Mob Ties Part 2. If you like mafia movies and want it infused with some football, that's what we did on that show.
That was a fun show.
If you don't, well, just fucking watch it because I'm asking you to. Okay, how about that? Look, let's do a Yui. Let's look back at some trades that we talked about on our previous show and go through if we still like it and if we don't. So what do you got first for us?
Yes, I mean, I'm liking this segment more and more because it gets us to test theory with what's out there on the Twitterverse
Exactly.
On player value. And we love talking player value. You can only poll so many ADPs and that sort of thing. The first one we talked about last week was Adams. So Devonte Adams or Keenan Allen and the 110, right? So classic, big top 5 player, getting older in the same bracket as the quarterback I drafted before and mentioned before. Or at least a younger piece. And this is a trade that we love the structure of, right? We love trading back
This is
in
perfect.
the position and adding value. And Twitter agrees, but not as much as I thought they probably would. This is kind of the surprise to me. It was 63% went to the Keenan Allen side.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be slightly bigger.
Really? See, I'm surprised it was as big as it is. Because I think I took Adams on this one.
Good.
If I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And Keenan Allen is my favorite. I've said this before. Keenan Allen is my favorite buy in the offseason. He's a 29 or almost 30-year-old wide receiver, but he's locked into his role. Great slot player, PPR machine.
Attached to an amazing quarterback.
Attached to one of the best rookie quarterbacks we've ever seen in our lifetime. So very interesting to me, but at the same time, Devonte Adams has only not finished as a wide receiver once in the last 5 or 6 years, and it took quite literally the best wide receiver season of all time to put him out of there. So I find it very interesting that the 110 in a rookie class that's not revered, that is enough, especially when you look at how it just ended up getting drafted in our recent draft. I think Keenan Allen went in the 7th round. Devonte Adams did not take that long. I think he was a 2nd-round pick or a 3rd-round pick. Yeah. So it's very interesting to me because I don't think I have pick 110. Yeah. I think I got that pick again in like the 8th round. I don't think I'm trading an 8th and 7th, my 2nd-round startup pick for an 8th and 7th round startup pick.
It's a fair point. If you don't
so that's why startup value, that is why you constantly need to check in on ADP value and apply it to your actual league. Because there's no way in hell this trade actually happens. In a startup. It only is happening in established leagues if it is actually happening at all, Bird app. But you voted 63%, so I can't mess with it. Why are you so convinced? Is it the 1st-round pick give you a little bit more clarity in your roster and do whatever you want, plus semi-replaceable value? Because you can't actually replace Devonte Adams.
You can't actually replace Devonte Adams, no. Look, I'm less convinced than I was about a minute ago. I like that. I like what you said. You look at... But I would still take the pick just because it really appeals to the way I play fantasy, right? It's the perfect structure for me. They're very similar type players. One is a far better player. But yes, the 110 grows in value. It just sits there as an asset that's fluid that I can use. I like having that flexibility. I don't like having guys who it's not fair to say I don't like having guys who a lot of value sits in, but it helps to diversify that portfolio, right? Because if Devonte Adams goes somewhere else or splits with Aaron Rodgers or gets injured, all of a sudden you have absolutely nothing. Whereas if I lose half of one of these 2 pieces, I still have something, which I know is a very, wussy way to approach fantasy football.
Soft.
But eventually, if you keep doing this over and over and over again, you acquire 3 firsts. You could go and buy back Devonte Adams.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you've got 3 players and Devonte Adams back in your team. So this is why I like that process. It generally is how it works for me. But yeah, like you said, not a bad argument the other way around. It could have been more even. I'm now less surprised that it was only 63%.
Yeah. Kind of crazy to me that they went Keenan. Look, I want to talk about the next one. This next one, to me, after seeing the Keenan Allen results, I don't think we need to talk about much more. I didn't expect the Keenan Allen results to be what they were. But we went Elijah Moore and the 108. Apparently, you could just basically trade Elijah Moore for Devonte Adams the way it looks right now.
Yeah.
Elijah Moore is skyrocketing. I would be looking to sell off my Elijah Moore sale. I would be looking to trade Elijah Moore for Devonte Adams right now, straight up, if I could. I'd like to win.
And straight up,
though Elijah Moore is a very good young prospect, the idea of having Devonte Adams for a couple of years, because face it, him and Rodgers are going to play together. I don't see a scenario where Adams doesn't have an elite target share from at least an above red. I'm pretty sure if you give Devonte Adams Baker Mayfield, he would still find a way to be good.
I was just about to say the worst case scenario is probably they both end up on the Jets, and I'd probably still take Devonte Adams because
I would still take
knowing that organization.
Exactly. So Twitter went with Elijah and the 108, obviously, at 75%. 75% seems a little crazy to me and insane. We post these every week pretty much. I don't know how many we're going to have this week, but you can post this we generally post these every week. So you can go and vote them at Thomas Tipple FF and at Dynasty Tilt as well, both on the Bird app. Look, Allen Robinson or the 203. 203 won this poll at 57%.
Yeah, she was a tight one. But, yeah, and I think I said last week, I would probably take Allen Robinson at that point.
I think I would. Oh my god. I don't want this to be on air so someone can come at me later. I think I would actually take the 203.
Right.
And that hurts every part of my being. It makes me feel ill. I've never seen a receiver go from 160 plus targets twice to 67.
So
I feel like Matt Nagy was actively. Could you imagine? Oh my God. Imagine if he goes to the Chiefs at this point. Did they not just hire Matt Nagy as their quarterback coach? How quickly does Allen Robinson just scratch off Kansas City as an option?
Do you need a quarterback coach in Kansas City?
I think it's just.
Is Matt Nagy just looking for a chair to sit in and get paid?
I think he's hoping to Adam Gase his way to another head coaching
Yeah,
job,
I
which
feel
is
like I
letting
could
an
be the
elite quarterback win a Super Bowl and call it a day.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with Allen Robinson. I wouldn't sell Allen Robinson for 203, but I would buy.
So that's right.
I still
So
would.
you
I
look
would
at-
sell. Hold on, I screwed myself up. I would sell Allen Robinson for 203. I would not buy Allen Robinson for 203. Now, make this a 206 and a 207, and for some reason that makes a big enough difference for me.
Yep.
This is a mental thing, I think.
Yep. For context in our draft, Allen Robinson went 9-6. The 203 went at 11-10. So Robinson was slightly ahead, but at that point, you sort of
was it Billy that drafted A-Rob?
No, it was actually me.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Okay.
But like I said,
there you go.
So it was Allen Robinson or the 201. You probably could take the 202 at that point, but yeah, I wanted to again the way this draft's headed. I was like, well, let's just put pieces on my team that could help me win.
Exactly. Context is everything. The next one was Chris Godwin or Darnell Mooney and the 106. I personally believe this is more the 106 for Godwin than it is
that's
Mooney
what we ended up
plus
talking about last.
Godwin. Yeah. And the Bird app went 70% Darnell Mooney and the 106. I just want to mention that I think Darnell Mooney might be the most exaggerated, overhyped player that really gets talked about. I believe he had 150 targets.
Yeah.
And he was abysmal on the season. Huskers, look at this guy. Happy to see you back in the house. We've missed you, and you're taking Godwin. I understand why. I think I'm taking the 106 plus Mooney. I think I'm taking the 106 plus the wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 2. Because if Mooney's value is this high, and I'll tell you why, Huskers, I think that I can get a 201 or a 202 or Clyde Edwards-Helaire plus for a Darnell Mooney right now.
Yep.
And having more options, I think, is better. I think Godwin has a good chance of coming back strong, but being in another situation for him, I think his rank right now is way too high. I think he's still ranked as a top 15 wide receiver on most
15,
platforms.
16.
Yeah.
And that seems a little bit too high to me, considering Hollywood Brown is ranked 31st. And I will not shut the fuck up about this until that is corrected. It is asinine that he is ranked that low. It is a joke, but I digress. So the Bird app went 70%. What are you taking here? I think you said for the same reason I did, that you're going 106 and Mooney.
Yeah, I probably too simplistically said it was Godwin versus the 106 and Mooney was somewhat irrelevant in my head. That's mainly because you just compare the two strongest pieces, right? You're trying to figure out what is the strongest piece in the trade.
That's what I mean. Mooney's the bonus. Mooney's the type of
bonus,
player.
yeah, which is not normally the way it's structured.
Right.
Yeah,
Mooney if start 11 or more. Sure. We generally think that it's, 3 wide receivers, 3 flexes, or 2 wide receivers, 3 flexes, etc. I would agree there, but I just think I'm taking Mooney to move him. Like if his value's that high.
And that's exactly the approach you go through is what can I do with each side? Godwin has, yes, high ADP at the moment for what he is and where he's at, but not everyone's buying him either. Not everyone wants him on their team, whereas
You
Mooney
really
is
got
a
to
pretty
find the
easy
fan.
asset. Yeah, Mooney's a pretty easy asset to move or even pair with another piece to move. So
Yes.
I'd be taking Mooney in the pick on that one.
Yeah, hard agree there. And this last one, again, wasn't expecting the Mooney one to go so hard.
Yeah.
So this one was Chase Claypool in the 107. I think this one is hilariously Chase Claypool in the 107. Yeah. Chase Claypool is getting shit on right now. He's definitely a buy. If you look at his statistics, the only real difference is his touchdowns. He scored 1 instead of 9. So you take you add touchdown variance. Let's say you level it right in between targets, receptions, and yards. We're almost the same. There's obviously way more in-depth and intricate stats and all that other stuff. But for the basics, exactly, Huskers just said process. It's exactly why we talk process. You trust that process. But obviously Chase Claypool's a huge buy. They get a quarterback that can actually throw it farther than 5 yards and decently well. I think he'll do okay. I didn't expect, again, the Darnell Mooney and the 106 poll to go so fucking hard. Yeah. So obviously Chase Claypool and the 107 won 80%. I don't think we need to talk about it a lot. You basically use the same process that you did for the Mooney and the 106 for Claypool and the 107. You call it a day, right?
Yep, that's it.
Okay, nothing to add. Look, we're gonna run a little something like we have been. When we come back from that, we're gonna get into the Hard Yakka. If you're new to the show, Tom Lee will go through that, and we're gonna get into some real tough process based stuff here because that's what we do. So sit tight. I'm your host with the most time on his hands, Thomas Tipple. You can find me at Thomas Tipple FF, and Chad Pennington is the most underappreciated Dolphin of all time.
I'm Billy. You can find me on Twitter at BigBillyFF. And Jordan Howard is tied for 4th in Dolphins rushing touchdowns since 2018, despite being bottom 20 in rushing yards.
Wow. My name is Jacob Sanderson. You can find me on Twitter, FF_RTDB. And Dolphins have 2 stomachs, but actually don't chew their food. Wait, you mean like the Miami Dolphins? Or sorry, I must have got my signals.
I'm gonna follow that up. Well, y'all, my name is Troy King. You can find me at King Mode on Twitter. One thing about the Dolphins you might not have known is that the Dolphins are the oldest professional sports franchise in Florida.
Oh, I didn't know that one. That's dope. Look, I think that was the first time we ever actually nailed the new intro down perfectly. So shout out to the guys, and obviously, again, special guest Troy, who you can find in season at yahoofantasy.com, and you can find him year round at footballguys.com. One of the best people that I've ever met on here. He gave me first shout out after my first Hollywood Brown article got posted. Fantastic human being. And the king of Thirsty Thursday. So, hey, get you some Troy King in your life for sure. Tom Lee, explain what Hard Yakka is for any new listeners.
Hard Yakka, imagine if you're I'm going to use a lot of Aussie slang here. Imagine you're a tradie having a hard day out in the tools in the sun. That's Hard Yakka. It's going to work. It's putting the work in. It's putting the yards in and making sure you do due diligence, which for us means process, which means that we use a process-driven mindset to go through some dynasty concepts or ideas or theories or just thought processes, which for this week is going to be based, again, sort of a little inspired by a startup with all of our most of our closest and dearest in. So we're going to take a little bit from the new startup and see a few player values and a few different questions. You know, the classic process questions of in a draft. If you take the quarterback here, what running back do you get 2 rounds later? Do you take the running back? What quarterback do you get 2 rounds later? That sort of process thinking. How are we approaching it? What are we seeing at the moment? So a little bit inspired by that. That'll be this week's Hard Yakka.
Right. So starting off, obviously a lot of these decisions were actually made in the draft, and these decisions get made all the time. And it is so important, and I can't stress this enough, and I might sound like a broken record to people who listen to us weekly, which if you do, we appreciate you so fucking much. We are growing at a rate that I have a hard time keeping up with, but I wouldn't change it for anything. But if you do not have these process-driven conversations all the time with yourself. If you
Yeah.
sit down and you get comfortable with all your information and your ADPs and your dynasty teams, and you're comfortable and you sit on your hands and you don't have this conversation with yourself, your friends, your league mates, you are screwed.
You're gonna fall
You
behind.
are already behind the 8 ball. And if you think that you are right 100% of the time, you are not. Okay, there's improvements that can be made all the time. So keep that in mind, please. These conversations are important for you to win yourself money more often than not. Not saying that the way we do it will necessarily make that happen.
Nope.
But it is
Trust your
just
own process. Yeah.
Yes, it is just one input in many that can help that process happen. So we're gonna have one of those right now. First and second round decisions: Chase and Lance, or Burrow and Christian McCaffrey. A couple years ago, even a year, let's say what Burrow's his second year. So last year, this decision obviously would have been easy. Chase being, let's say, the 101 at the time, or the 102. Let's say that, and Lance being the 101. So this is Christian McCaffrey all day, right? But now it's a little bit different.
Yeah, and I mean, first round and second round, like we always, from
This
a
is
value
easy
point of view,
for
you always
me,
want to trade back, right?
Yes.
But avoiding that, now you're stuck with the decision. Now you're at sort of the turn, you're at the 110. What do? How do you start off with the younger wide receiver and then try to back it up the quarterback later on? Do you take the new hotness, which is Joe Burrow, and then maybe we're ready to compete? How do you set the standard? Do you try to set a standard? Do you try to set a strategy this early in the draft? So what is your clear winner for you, Tom?
Oh my God. As Husker just mentioned on YouTube, where you can post your questions and comments, which we encourage you to do, it's Chase and Lance by a literal mile.
Yeah.
I'm willing to bet on Trey Lance to the point where I am actively willing to trade Lamar Jackson for Trey Lance plus.
Straight up.
No,
Okay.
God, no. But a plus for sure.
Anyone
some
playing
people would.
Full Tilt Bingo, by the way, has just hit all three of Tom's favorite players to mention.
Yeah, you get promoted. You get more clips played on other shows. You get more shout outs that way. Just, and if you can fit a Joe Flacco reference in the next
I'm struggling. Maybe in the
15
Aussie slang.
minutes,
Yeah.
I might give you even more shout outs. But yeah, it's Lance and Chase by a mile. And it's easy to talk about hindsight and whatever else, but again, this is the worst possible time to want a running back that's 25, 26 years old on your roster right now. And this isn't like getting Christian McCaffrey at a deal. That's basically like you're trading, right? People will have Trey Lance. If you're Jacob, you have Trey Lance over Joe Burrow straight up right now in your rankings, even though we don't like linear or arbitrary rankings. We like tiers, but Trey Lance will be a tier above Joe Burrow for me, and he is right now. And my ranks and everything will be out with Coach Bruce, who's collecting ranks right now. I don't think you can get, and Huskers just said, I don't think you can get Chase in a trade for CMC and Burrow. For both, you can. For both, you can. I think, obviously if it's 2-for-1, that's pretty easy. But with Lance involved, you're not getting Jamar Chase and Trey Lance for CMC and Burrow for most people. That's just not going to happen. And so for me, I want the most value, and it's Chase and Lance. Even if you don't believe in Lance, right? Worst case scenario, he's Taysom Hill. And Taysom Hill is a QB1 in points per game when he plays.
Yeah.
So get over yourself. So is Tim Tebow. So at worst, he's Tim Tebow.
Yeah.
So
I mean, and this is the thing. This is probably one of the most poignant points of startup drafts is that you're not going to find the same player valuable once they've been drafted, right? Once Chase is gone, there's no new Chase. There's no replaceable player to come in the next round. So you are somewhat stuck if you're not trading back. Do you pick CMC? Do you let him slide? Well, if you're at, I think this person was at 202, they aren't coming back by the time it gets around to the 311, right? And again, this classic starter mentality of all running backs, they're going to go, they're going to get sucked up, they're going to I'm not going to have anyone at 311. I can see how this process gets made. And I don't think either of these, if you saw either of these two players on a roster in full context, do you have one over the other? Probably the younger roster, but at the same time, if that person then leads young players the entire way, they're probably not ready to compete this year or next year. They're going to let Lance have a year to build into it. And the person with Burrow and CMC could go and win the league straight away this year. So I understand the process, it's fine, but from a value point of view in a startup, you can see how taking the unreplaceable wide receiver and then following up with the young guy who could be better than all the rest of the quarterbacks in the second round wins as a process-driven decision.
And in context for these players all went back to back. So Billy took Jamar Chase at 110. The guy at 104 traded up to get Burrow Chase went at 19. At 110, the guy who had traded up and drafted Burrow, he then took McCaffrey, and then Billy took Lance right after. So these four players actually went back to back. What's next?
So the next one we had, we were talking about this. You're trading back, you're trying to get value. Well, if the two clear wide receiver 1 and 2 are Jefferson and Chase, which for us they are, and for a lot of rankings they are as well, you have a huge chunk of wide receivers between 3 and 11 who have to go in the next couple of rounds. The question for me is, what do you do here? Because if you're stuck in these rounds, and like we saw in this draft, you can't trade back, you have to pick. What are you trying to do? Who are you trying to take? Who swings the value? We talk about tiers. Well, a lot of these guys are fit in the same tier. So now you're stuck. Now you're in a vacuum. As much as we love to talk tiers and how it helps outside of drafts, when you're in the draft, you have to make a call sometimes. And for me, this was a fascinating part of the draft because, one, I wasn't involved in it, to see who went in these ranges. But you were, right? So the three players I pulled out of this round, sort of wide receiver 3 to 11, at the end of the second round, at the start of the third round, Metcalf, Waddle, and T. Higgins, right? Yes. All went back to back. And I believe they went as the wide receivers. Let's have a look here.
They were 3, 4, and 5. They were like wide receiver 7, 8, 9 or something, right?
7, 8, 9. Yeah. Which is, again, pretty much below or right where they're at as far as ADP goes everywhere else. So what are you thinking here?
My decision was very easy. I did not think about this very much. I know Jaylen Waddle might be the player who, at his ADP, aside from Javonte Williams, that I can't buy into. I have drafted him as early as 3-3 in other drafts this offseason, again, in the hopes that I can capitalize on the value. But he's one player's value I just can't get behind that high. I love T. Higgins, but he leaves a little bit to be desired for me as my wide receiver 1 on my team. So for me, it was quite easy. DK Metcalf, age, size, speed, ability. He's done it. Red zone opportunities, everything. I am happy embracing some variance with DK Metcalf, and I am happy to know that he can probably do it with anyone. So I'm happy to have him as wide receiver 1. It was very easy for me to take DK Metcalf at 212 instead of these other guys. It was easy, very simple.
So from a process point of view, though, if you are stuck in this position, if you're talking to other people who are also stuck, end of the second, start of the third, they've got to pick one of these guys. How do they wade through their own tiers to figure out which one to pick out? Because it's probably a little too early to look at what's my draft strategy. You're not building a set roster in round 2 and 3. You can't have that foresight.
So for me, how does somebody navigate this? There's a little bit to be said for just taking players that you're more comfortable having. And I think that's not talked about enough. I'm more comfortable having DK Metcalf. This is the deal breaker. I was more comfortable having DK Metcalf as my wide receiver 1. Yeah, I liked him. I like him more as a player. He's more fun to watch to me. I like seeing him just all of a sudden have a 70-yard touchdown for no reason. I like him more purely as a player, and he's shown more as a dominant wide receiver 1 than the other two have so far. Remember, Jalen Waddle had a fantastic rookie season, still didn't finish that high in points per game, did not finish that high total points at the end of the year, and it's in an offense that's going through a lot of changes. So for me, it was at least a little bit of stability, and it was what we've seen before already. So he fits the bill for me.
Yeah. So, I agree with that, man. Like, you look at, do you prefer any of these ones over the others? Not really. I love all 3 of these players. But if you're going to do the old keep, trade, cut mentality, you're going to look at what are the weaknesses to each one of these players, right? T. Higgins is the wide receiver 2 on his own team, right? You're not going to have 2 in the top 5 wide receivers, right? Not 2 from the same team, very rarely. Right? So that's like the chink in T. Higgins' armor, right? Waddle, like you said, amazing rookie year, has the potential to be something special, but we know and we've seen DK be that guy. And like you said, there's a lot more fun to watch. So I'd agree. You'd probably take Metcalf, but I'd be happy with any of these 3.
It's one of those scenarios where if you're trading within your tiers, you're happy to trade any one of these guys for the other with a plus on top to get the deal done. right?
Exactly.
You're happy taking that player in a plus if somebody else wanted it. So it's like if the player who drafted Jalen Waddle wanted DK Metcalf off of my roster and he was willing to give me pretty much anything to encourage me to get that deal done, I would do it in a second because they are that even for me. So
Correct.
yeah, what's next?
Yeah. So the next one for us, the same process in the first and second round. We have some crucial decisions as far as draft process goes popping up in what we call the mid rounds. When we talk about the mid rounds, we're not talking about the middle of the draft, right? We're talking about the middle part of setting up your starting lineup worth of picks. So for some people, if you've traded back, that can all happen very quickly. If you're drafting as is set, a lot of the time it's rounds 4 through to 7, right?
Yeah.
So based on process, we talk about taking running backs early, taking quarterbacks later. It's the same thing we talked about early. We look at Russell Wilson in the 4th and Zeke in the 7th, or Mac Jones in the 7th and J.K. Dobbins in the 4th. What do you prefer? It's too hard to have the foresight at the time to go what's going to happen. But these are classic decisions that happen every single draft where you're hoping to get that same positional pick later on if the value slides. Or do you try to take the guy produces straight away in the 4th? What is your process here?
I'm so annoyed because I know that I had the options for these and you're trying to catch me slipping.
This is kind of why I picked out these players.
I didn't. So I don't want Russell Wilson on my dynasty rosters right now. And
correct.
Make fun of me all you want. Don't like my
Especially
decision.
after you just took Metcalf.
I've never. Sure, I can love the receiver and not love the quarterback. I love Jamar Chase. Don't love having Joe Burrow on my dynasty teams. Which again, you can try to make fun of me for that one too, but it's not going to matter to me.
Yeah.
For me, I obviously didn't take Dobbins and Wilson.
No.
That's because of my roster construction. I took Elliott. QB is king. Get them early in Superflex. I know TT disagrees. It's not even that I disagree, Husker.
Yeah.
Husker. It's more that I trust myself maybe more than I should in being able to get a deal done to secure that quarterback. I agree in getting your elite quarterback first. I think that should be your number one priority. Like Tom Lee, you went Jonathan Taylor at 105, and I don't think I could have done that.
Yeah.
Not with the GOAT and Lamar Jackson on the board, or even Kyler Murray, who I like a little bit less. I agree in that. I don't agree, however, in taking a Tua over the 101 just because I need a second quarterback.
Yeah.
I don't believe in taking like Russell Wilson over Mark Andrews, which I took Mark Andrews, tight end premium. I took Mark Andrews at 3-1 because he's a tight end too. I believe in that, knowing that I can get quarterback 2 replicated production. I drafted Tyler Huntley late in case Lamar Jackson goes down. I have a QB1. I drafted Taysom Hill later in the draft because if he gets the start in New Orleans, I have a QB1. Worst case scenario, I make a trade, and I'm confident enough to be in myself to be able to make that trade. Yeah. So if QB truly is king, if you're in a lobby with other players who believe QB is king, go the other way.
Yeah.
Right. And build your team against theirs and bet on yourself and bet against your league mates. Is kind of the way I describe it. So it's not necessarily that I disagree with you, but my process is very much driven around the people I'm drafting with. So if they believe in that process, I will let them take their player at their value because they quite clearly value him higher than me. That makes sense? I hope that makes sense.
From a process point of view for me with these mid rounds is if there is still a quarterback available in the 4th round that you believe to be a top 12 quarterback, you should take that guy, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So whether it's Russell Wilson, whether it's, I'm not going to bring up Aaron Rodgers again because I said that before, it wasn't the right decision. But
it's just going to hurt you if you do it.
Yeah, but if there's a guy there that you think is top 12, you should be taking that guy because you can then fade running back, find some replacement later on, whether it's picks, whatever it is, right?
If there's not, go ahead. Sorry.
If you're stuck looking down the barrel of a Tua, like you said, who we know is good, but I know 3 rounds later I can get Mac Jones. Well, sorry, when I say good, I mean like he's a serviceable QB2. Yeah. Like this is what you're looking at. You're not looking for a QB1 here. If that's off the board, well, I know I'm probably going to get my QB2, my Derek Carr, my Mac Jones later on in the draft. If there's then a running back or there's a wide receiver who I know to be a top 12 for my rankings, I'm taking that guy. And that's all the decision comes down to for me. Is there a positional number 1 still left on the board? If there's not, except for tight end, If there's not, well, then you can keep trading back and looking for more value, but you take that guy there and replace later on. And I think, honestly, if you like, both of these draft strategies are fine. If you like Russell Wilson as a top 12 quarterback, take him and take Zeke in the 7th, because you've got your running back production at a good value and you've got your guy that you like. If you don't, take J.K. Dobbins in the 4th and get Mac Jones in the 7th. They're both fine strategies, but these are the things that we sort of bank on when we decide on a player and hope that something comes back later. It's just an interesting spot to be in every single draft you're in.
Right, and I want to skip the next one because Hollywood, D-Hop, and Evans is fucking hilarious to me. It's Hollywood Brown. It's not remotely post. We'll post that one. I want to run through this one quick before we get out of here. So run this one through.
Yeah. So whenever you have rookie picks in the startup draft, what do you do with them, right? A lot of people forget that they're there. They fade them. If it's not a player name, they haven't done their rankings, they don't know what to focus on. So when you have the rookie 101, you've got to think, okay, outside of it, what can I be doing with this piece? It's not that I'm going to draft a player at 101. It's what is the value of this piece as opposed to the player. Whereas as soon as you have rookies in your draft, it's different. The value then drops because we know we're taking that player over someone else. So the rookie 101, the startup, these are some pieces that went around the rookie 101, right? Where people had the decision, I'm not going to bring Aaron Rodgers up, to take this piece or the 101. So I'm going to run through this, classic question style. We'll post these polls as we always do, right?
Yeah.
101 or Tua?
101.
Right. They went a pick apart, right?
Which is insane to me, but yeah.
You got the 101 one pick later. 101 or Chubb?
101.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, the worst part about asking this is you were the one who took the 101, so I know you take it over all these pieces. But for people out there, this is what you're looking down the barrel of. There's pieces that can produce right now that are high-value pieces, but the 101 is this alluring, fluid asset, If you were to look to trade a first for Chubb, you're going to struggle unless it is the 101, right? Don't do it, sure, but from an established league point of view, running backs hold so much sway that you're going to start struggling to trade in a low running back class picks for running backs. So it becomes a difficult decision for some. The last one, or the last two for me, especially in the tight end Premier League, 101 or Kelsey, which I assume was a tough decision here.
So this was, again, a conversation in the draft where we had, and it was in the Slack where I was just begging and pleading someone to take Travis Kelce before it got to me, even though I had Mark Andrews. So I took the 101 at 412. Yeah, I think, right? And
which I think is perfect. If you can get that there.
Yeah. And Travis Kelce was still there, and it took everything in my being to not take him because in a tight end premium, even without, he's probably going to be a top 10 wide receiver by his points and receptions and everything else that makes him amazing.
Yeah.
But it's the 101 for me. And I think if I could trade Travis Kelce right now in established leagues for the 101, I think I would still do it, even though it hurts my soul. This is your last real chance to even try to get out.
To get rid of him. Yeah.
So for me, it's 101. God damn it.
The last one for us was 101, and then Saquon slid to the middle of the fifth round. So
he can stay there.
Yeah, so it really comes down to with a guy like Saquon, do you have him as a top 12 running back or do you not? Because if you do, you're going to struggle to trade for him with rookie picks alone. But if you don't, then it's going to be easy money to take the 101 and just sit there and watch that asset be great.
I just can't bring myself to take Saquon Barkley there over the 101 or even the 102 when I can just draft Ezekiel Elliott in the 7th, 8th, 9th round in startups and get similar production for this year and then still have my draft pick.
Yeah.
I understand that me more Jacob than I, but we shat on Ezekiel Elliott at length.
Yeah.
It's just because people who rank him still in that top 5, top 6, top 7.
That's the issue.
And ignore the signs. Elliott shouldn't drop to the 7th, 8th, 9th round, in my opinion. And you can flame me for that. The 0 RB truthers will come at me, right?
Yeah. If you can get Zeke in the 7th as your first running back and have stuffed up and so much before it, you're pretty happy. He might only have a year left,
especially when
but
you're
you've got a
sitting
very good running back.
With the top 2 picks in the draft, a wide receiver and an elite quarterback already. I just don't see why I would, in my opinion, reach on Saquon Barkley, who seems to get a pass on all of his problems when others don't. And team, even if he gets traded, few scenarios where we're looking at, 97 target Saquon Barkley again with
Yeah.
1,300 yards and 12 plus touchdowns, which he was need to replicate that value. Meanwhile, Zeke on one leg pulled 65 receptions on a team that is going to force him out on the field no matter what.
No matter what. Yeah.
Like, it sucks and it's dirty and it's gross, and I'm prepared to have Zeke die on my team, but I'm also, again, betting on myself to be able to either move him or put myself in a position to win with him on my roster.
Spot on.
Kind of plain and simple. So I think that's it.
That's it, man. That's good.
Oh my gosh. Look, we're going to take one more quick second with a little something. And when we come back, we're going to give our final thoughts, get our Aussie slang, and get the heck out of here. I'm Thomas Tipple of the Full Tilt Dynasty Podcast.
And I'm Steven Johnson with ShyCitySports.com, and I'll be on the Full Tilt Dynasty Podcast March 3rd.
Steven's going to make sure to take the time to let everyone know that he feels that Mitch Trubisky will go down as the greatest Chicago Bears quarterback of all time.
You know, if he wasn't sabotaged by the coaching staff, that could have happened.
Say less. I have been contacted to and instructed to inform everyone he doesn't actually think that. Don't slander his name for that thought. That was my gimmick. Okay, I take full responsibility. Tom Lee, final thoughts and Aussie slang on our season 2, episode 6 of the Fantasy Walkabout.
Yeah, Aussie slang. We overcrowded the last episode with too much Aussie slang. We want a clean one. We want something that's simple, people can use. We want Aussie slang.
There was a lot of dicks in
influencing
that one, yeah.
Well, too many dicks, right? Now, this sounds a bit dickish, but it's not dick-based, right? Which is
Fair
crucial.
enough.
The Aussie slang or the Aussie saying for today is "Don't come the raw prawn."
What the fuck?
Yeah, that's the appropriate
come
reaction.
the raw prawn.
Right, so we know that you guys call prawns shrimps, which is wrong, but that's fine. We'll let you off.
Yeah, Australians don't actually put shrimps on the Barbie, right?
You can't buy shrimp
Prawns.
over here. Shrimp paste is like as close as you're going to get, and that's not an Australian product. Yeah, they are prawns. They've always been prawns. But anyway, that's beside the point. So don't come the raw prawn. Essentially, don't try to pull the wool over my eyes. Don't try to deceive me. All right?
Okay.
Don't. So the sentence was go something like, "Don't come the raw prawn with me, mate." Right?
Okay.
Don't try to deceive me. So if you're in a trade discussion and someone's trying to pull that bullshit out and roll it out and try to get you on a narrative, mate, don't come the raw prawn with me. That is, yeah, it's not blue collar, but it's pretty common.
So
and it's a bit of an interesting one, but it's a good fun one.
So it'd be like, I'm not here to fuck spiders because I'm Fig Jam. So don't try to come the raw prawn with me.
Don't try, because then that sounds like you're trying to do something weird to a prawn. Yeah, don't come the raw prawn.
Don't come the raw prawn.
So to be, I'm not here to fuck spiders. Don't come the raw prawn. # Fig Jam. That'd be
okay.
Okay. Yeah,
and for
which
people
may
who
be a
don't
tweet that we'll post out.
I love that one. We're gonna do that. We're definitely gonna tweet that one out. Fig Jam is fuck. I'm great. Just ask me. Right?
That's
is
correct.
that
Yes.
all right? I'm learning to use this Aussie
Catching
slang in conversations. It is becoming part of my regular life because that's how we do it. Voorhees is back. What's good? Hey, we're just talking some Aussie slangs, man. Things you need to be using in your everyday life. And look, for me, I say the same thing at the end of every show because I can't stress this enough. Being kind to one another is easily one of the most important and vital things that someone can do in all cases. So I'll say the same thing that I always do. 1, trust your process. 2, be kind to one another. Don't be a giant pile of human garbage. Don't be a piece of shit. Welcome variance into your life. Be understanding. Remember that clear eyes and full hearts can never lose, and that your best days, well, they're spent right here and they're spent tilting. One thing I actually completely almost forgot, and I do this every fucking time. I really have to teach myself to not do it. Look, March 3rd, we have Steven Johnson. March 8th, we have Alfred Fernandez. March 7th, Pat Doherty. March 15th, Ben Gretsch. All confirmed guests on this here podcast, the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast brand, all coming in the next 2 weeks. So just cannot wait to get that kicked off. So again, remember, be kind to one another, everyone, because I'm fucking paying attention. Hey, if you stayed to the end of the show, we appreciate you very much. Look, the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast is giving away a signed Saquon Barkley Penn State University jersey, and here's how you can win. All you have to be doing is following the members of the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast, or at least the @DynastyTilt Twitter account. That's over there on the Bird app. And all you have to do is comment on one of our videos or polls, posts, who you think the consensus ranked picks 1 and 2 will be for the upcoming rookie countdown for Superflex PPR formats. That's all you got to do. We're going to pick a winner and we're going to mail it out to you. Doesn't matter if you live in the United States, the UK, Australia, doesn't matter. We're going to get that done. And lastly, we just want to point out, obviously, there's a lot of things happening around the world right now, a lot of really sad and disparaging things. We're not a political podcast. We are a fantasy sports and entertainment podcast network. We keep ourselves out of that. We are here for, entertaining everyone. So keep that in mind. And if you're wondering where our political or views on these things are, it's not going to be found here. Most importantly, again, stay safe. Get in on the contest. You're going to want this jersey. We'll catch with everyone later. Enjoy your weekend. Stay safe.